welcome to Mozart Mondays with me, Michael Collins. I'm going to talk to you about Mozart's Clarinet Concerto, a piece that has been with me all my playing life for the last, let's say, 40 years of professional playing life. And for many of those years, I've actually played this concerto a lot with the LMP, so it's been quite an honour and quite a privilege, actually, yeah, I must say, to play this piece with such a fantastic bunch of musicians. And even though over the years a lot of the players have changed, somehow the commitment and musical togetherness has remained exactly the same, which is absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to talk to you over the next 3 weeks, 3 Mondays, about Mozart's Clarinet Concerto, and today's starting with the first movement. Now, I've played it most of my life on this instrument, the basset clarinet, and Mozart composed, we now have the evidence, Mozart composed the concerto for this instrument. I was very lucky, years ago I was playing it in Winterthur near Zurich, Switzerland, and in the concert hall, the actual remains of the manuscript of Mozart's Clarinet Concerto are housed there. So I was allowed to go and have a look and put my white gloves on and actually, hold the score, the manuscript, which was pretty amazing. And only a fragment of the first movement remains, but it's a clear evidence from the manuscript that the concerto was written for this instrument, the basset clarinet. In fact, in Mozart's writing, it starts off as a basset clarinet concerto in G major. So that's a really interesting thought, G major. So what kind of clarinet would have been around then to have played this piece in G major? Anyway, food for thought. So after Anton Stadler, who Mozart composed the concerto for, and the clarinet quintet, and the clarinet trio, the Kegelstadt trio, really between them, I suppose it would have been between Mozart and Stadler, they came up with this idea of this incredible instrument, the basset clarinet. It is basically a normal A clarinet with an extension. So if I just show you the difference between a normal A clarinet and then all the extra notes down the bottom, as you can see. Here we are. It looks longer, if you can see, yeah, not much longer, but it has a much deeper sound and an extra 4 notes, which for the concerto makes a huge difference. For many years, the concerto was played on the regular A clarinet because after the death of Anton Stadler, the basset clarinet also died, really. It didn't take off as an instrument. And I would say that's partly due to the awkwardness of the instrument, technically, which is such a shame because it does make a richer, darker sound than the regular clarinet. And as we know, the regular A clarinet version is stunning, it's beautiful, but not the original, which Mozart intended for. He intended it for the basset clarinet. So if I just give a brief example of the range, this would be the lowest note on the regular A clarinet. That's the lowest note on a clarinet, but on the basset clarinet we have these extra notes. So here's the lowest note of the basset clarinet, and Mozart really uses it to full advantage throughout the concerto. I'll give an example of 1 or 2 passages. I'll play them on the basset clarinet, the original version, and then play them on the A clarinet, which for many years we have grown to recognise the concerto by, I suppose you could say. And on the regular clarinet, one difference. I mean, there are so many examples throughout the concerto. One more, for instance. And on the clarinet, so there we are. You can hear the difference already, the richer sonority of the basset clarinet. And you wouldn't think so from the very opening, which is very, of the concerto, the opening is very gentle and song-like. And in fact, throughout the concerto, Mozart treats the clarinet as the human voice. And I suppose we are lucky as clarinetists that the instrument is associated very much to the human voice. So we can really sing through the instrument. And even for the very first phrase of the clarinet entry of the concerto, it's a song-like statement. So even when the clarinet is playing in a virtuosic way, there's still very much a lyrical feel to the piece, even in the most difficult of technical passages. I think it's our aim as performers to try and extract the most lyrical possibilities from passage work, and rather than turn this piece into a sort of tour de force virtuosic concerto, which it can become if we're not careful, because there are so many moments of virtuosic delights. I think my feel is that, you know, it's a piece that was written at the very end of Mozart's life, and we have to respect his feeling and passion for the clarinet, and obviously for Anton Stadler's ability as a musician and as a clarinetist. And we have to delve really deeply into the, if you like, the darker moments, and try to colour these moments with a particular sound that's not too bright, not too dull. And so I suppose what I'm saying is it's one of the hardest things about playing this piece is to strike the right chord, strike the right sound. And I found from years and years of playing this piece that the secret comes from the opening tutti of the orchestra. I think if you listen really carefully to the smooth melody played at the very beginning by the first violins, we can often copy this beautiful, sweet, song-like quality on the clarinet to even greater effect when we come in. So if we have this always going on in the back of our minds throughout the piece, I think then we've achieved what I feel is hopefully something close to how Mozart really wants this piece to be played. I'm not saying that, I mean, by any means I have the answers, absolutely not, but I'm trying to think of the piece from outside of the box rather than as a clarinetist, I suppose I'm trying to say. And I think when I go on to a platform to perform this piece, I always have at the back of my mind that this is the first time I'm playing the piece, you know, because it's a piece of discovery. You could never stop finding something new to say in the music. It has never-ending fascination, because you can explore all different sorts of articulation, for instance, throughout the piece in some of these technical passages, because in the manuscript there are no articulation instructions, so it's left to the performer to improvise, if you like, these sort of tonguing articulation moments, equivalent of violin to bowing, I suppose. And there are so many ways of interpreting a technical passage. For example, I'll try and show you several different ways of one particular passage. Now that's played without any kind of articulation at all, which I'm not a fan of, I have to say, because I think all these moments of brilliance and technical moments should have some kind of articulation, just to pronounce the words like a song. You know, you use the tongue to form words, and it's the same for us on a wind instrument. We use the tongue to pronounce, to shape. So I would see the passage a little like this. So there's a variety going on between, you know, tonguing certain notes, playing them legato in others. And so there's always something happening. The music is kept alive by this variation of articulation. I suppose the other thing I look for when I'm playing this piece is to think about making as many different sounds as possible between major and minor. Major, I think, brighter, happier moments of sound, and the minor moments to darken the sound. It's a very difficult thing to do, and I think one way around this is to have the music constantly going on in your head, so you really feel you know the kind of sound you want to make before you actually make it. That's very difficult. And of course, you need the right setup with the right reed to be able to achieve this variation of sounds and possibilities. But even the opening phrase, which shouldn't be too bright, but as I said earlier, it should be song-like, and it's major, it's happy. And then only a few bars on, we suddenly go into the minor. So already there's, you know, some kind of variation going on, constantly keeping the music alive from note to note, bar to bar, phrase to phrase. So for the listener, it's a story. And I suppose, like all music, particularly this piece, I feel it does tell a story. The first movement is a very big movement by any standard. And there's a lot in it. I mean, from the first phrase, which then develops into, a longer melody, develops into something minor, more threatening, which then leads into something more brighter and more major again, and technical, before we have then the second main tutti of the movement. So 3 examples of this, I'll just play each example. Opening, which then leads to the minor, which then opens out, develops into really a long statement for the clarinet, which then ends up in a little moment of reprise, a little cadenza moment, which gives us a chance to turn the corner. It's not a cadenza like a Mozart piano concerto, which is a prolonged moment for the soloist to really demonstrate the ability. It's just a turning of the corner before going into our moment of brilliance, which is accompanied by the orchestra. So here are just the different moments throughout, from the first, before the second major tutti before the development of how Mozart gets from one section to the next. And then into the minor. And then we have, he's now introduced something very simple. So the clarinet is in full swing melodically, which is accompanied by some very simple quavers in the violins, while the clarinet is just weaving this beautiful melodic line. So, and then how do we get into this moment of brilliance for the clarinet? It's quite simple. So there's the little moment of reprise, a little cadenza moment, which then leads into the moment of brilliance. So that's our moment to really shine and to, for want of a better phrase, is to show off. These are our moments, our golden moments of showing off exactly what we can do as a soloist, as a virtuosic clarinetist. But as I said, there are moments when we can play so calm and so inwardly and touchingly, and it's these moments that I love to explore and create some kind of special atmosphere in a concert hall, because there's very little going on in the orchestra, so in a way you feel that you're almost playing unaccompanied. That's how it feels sometimes, that you're able to shape these phrases. The thing that comes through my mind is quite often be the word liquid gold. And I suppose what I mean by that is that to shape these phrases in a very liquid way, so the legato is incredibly smooth, seamless, without any bumps in it. And of course, this is the challenge on a wind instrument, to get from one note to the next without any kind of bumps. So we must have a really good control of our diaphragm and breathing muscles, and what comes out through, here from the mouth into the clarinet is a seamlessly smooth liquid gold to produce those moments. It's very hard to do, but I'll give an example. So there we are. I'm always amazed, even playing these little snippets, how fast the mood can change. You think you're going along happily in some sort of major happy feel to the music, when suddenly a storm cloud will come and destroy the sunshine and take us into another mood altogether, but not for long. I think that's the beauty of Mozart's music, and particularly with this concerto, that the storm moments never last for very long. we're always back into that glorious sunshine. And I think that's demonstrated for the love he has for the clarinet. Obviously, he sees the clarinet as an instrument that's bright, warm, sunny, and melodic. He obviously also will never stop loving the moments that he can show off with the instrument, and we're thankful to Mozart for these moments, because it gives us a chance to shine as well. But I know that playing this piece in a concert hall is one of the most profound experiences that I can share. And it's taken me a long time, many years, to really come to terms, as I was, with this first movement of the concerto, because it's the hardest, without question, the hardest of the three movements, because of its variety, which I didn't realise quite how much one has to exaggerate these moods for them to come across. When I've listened back to a recording of a concert, I often thought, oh gosh, I thought I did more variety, more colours and so on, where in fact when listening to it, it can sound rather dull almost and lifeless. So that's why you can never stop learning and experimenting and taking the piece another step further. And I'm learning also that we have to really exaggerate these lightness and darkness, light and shade of the first movement in particular. I suppose we're lucky that, or I'm lucky that I play it on the basset clarinet, and having these extra notes down the bottom makes it slightly easier to project these moments of contrast compared to playing it on a normal regular A clarinet. But I think I certainly have tried to pass on to my students from teaching that the importance of getting hold of a basset clarinet. Now, saying that, of course, the one I play on and have played on all my life is a modern reconstruction. I mean, this looked nothing like the instrument of Mozart's day. In fact, it would have been even more difficult to play because there were fewer keys to start with, and there's a lot of half-holing of certain holes to get the chromatic semitones and so on. So we're lucky with the modern version that we have extra keys and one at the back as well to play the lowest note, low C, to help us achieve all of this in a much easier way. But it also has its huge problems that A, it's a very heavy instrument, B, the amount of keys you have here, and this one at the back, it becomes quite a minefield to negotiate. Saying that at the end of it all, I wouldn't swap this instrument, and I could never play it again on a regular A clarinet. I wouldn't know how to, in fact, because I've been playing it all my life, professional life, on a basset clarinet. And even though there are some really tricky moments to play it on a basset clarinet, it's worth the effort, worth the sacrifice.